What's the deal with
New World video game?
Not much, really. It's a new MMORPG made by Amazon Game Studios, and it seems to have had quite the launch in the past few days. With the mass exodus of players from World of Warcraft, it seems like prime time. Get it? Prime? Ah, shit. Seems like prime time for a new big-budget company like Amazon to release a big MMORPG to take over all those potential players. Does New World succeed? Is it going to be the next big game we all play? No. No, it's not. There's a lot of potential here in this game, don't get me wrong, but you could say that about a lot of games that release nowadays. It's just that players around the world have been starving for a new MMORPG experience, and New World has come at the perfect time to capitalize on that market demand. The game itself, however, leaves a lot to be desired, so let's discuss why. First things first, the game runs like a one-legged blind chimpanzee with a stick in its ass. Yeah, I get it, the game looks great, but it doesn't look good enough to have such low performance. I am playing on RTX 3060 with a Ryzen 5900 CPU, and I have a hard time maintaining 60 frames per second all over the world, especially in the towns. Queue times are atrocious, and players will often find themselves waiting for hours and hours just to play the game. But okay, it's a new MMO, and for some reason, developers and publishers seem to never be ready for the amount of players that want to play their game. I guess we just accept that as is. Performance issues aside, there are still many places where New World falls short, mainly in the questing, combat, and the PvE experience. New World's quests are painfully dull. They're pretty much kill and gather quests. You know the ones. The ones MMOs had back in the early 2000s. Kill 10 wolves, gather 5 herbs, kill 10 brown wolves, gather 5 potatoes, get some wheat. Ah, shit. I mean, I get it. It's an MMO. This is typical in this genre, but does it have to be this way in 2021? Especially since there are games out there like Elder Scrolls Online that have well-written stories and full voice acting for all main and side quests in the game. It seems like quite the missed opportunity here.
Thank you for returning so promptly. Before we get to other matters, tell me about your search for the Tower Sentinels. Valcerin recounted the events at the College of Sapiarchs after she returned with Lathan. But I'm eager to hear your report.
It gets even worse, though. In New World, you go back to the same exact spot to do multiple quests. Sometimes you're killing the same monsters for different quests. Do you realize how boring it gets when I have to take the quest, run to the quest area, kill 10 whatevers, run back, get another quest that tells me to go back to the same place that I killed the 10 whatevers in, but this time I have to pick up items in chests that are guarded by the exact same monsters that I killed for the last quest? But okay, no, that's fine. No, it's fine. Shouldn't be a problem. Shouldn't be a problem, right? As long as combat is fun. Because if the combat is fun, then I could at least enjoy beating the crap out of the monsters while I grind out my XP. Well, it's all right. It certainly isn't the worst combat ever, but it often feels very stiff. See, your character is locked into the animation when they attack. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not executed very well here. I can't put my finger on it, but I just feel like I'm always fighting the controls, not really using them to control my character in a fluid way. Maybe I'm just bad at the game, but overall it just feels stiff to me. On top of that, you only get 3 abilities aside from the basic light and heavy attack. Listen, if I'm going to play an MMORPG for hours on end, I kind of want to have more than 3 abilities. Technically, you can have up to 6 abilities because you can have 3 more abilities if you slot in another weapon, but these abilities don't have much utility. They pretty much all boil down to a slightly better version of the light or heavy attack, with some abilities being gap closers or passive buffs. The annoying thing here is that all the weapons tend to have very similar abilities. For example, the sword has a spin move, and if you're using a shield with it, you have a shield bash that functions as a gap closer. But get this, the two-handed axe also has a spin move and a gap closer. Huh. There are some exceptions to this copy-paste game design, but those are rare. You'll start to slowly realize that no matter which weapons or abilities you choose, combat is not all that engaging. Ranged combat especially feels useless because you have to craft or buy the ammo for your weapon. But the ranged weapons don't do any more damage than the melee weapons do, and they're often slower and more cumbersome to use. So if you're using a ranged weapon, you're pretty much at a big disadvantage here. It's a pretty tame combat system. That's not always a bad thing, but when it's paired with the horrible and repetitive quests, you'll start to feel pretty worn out before you can even get close to max level. New World has crafting, and it's crafting. It's a pretty well executed crafting system. I like it, but it's not a reason to play the game. I mean, take a game like Albion Online, where you could literally just be a guy who gathers and crafts stuff. That game was designed around that, but New World, not so much. For example, in Albion, you could choose to have a transport ox as a mount, which increases your character's carrying capacity, allowing you to gather more materials at the cost of having a slower mount. Well, in New World, there are no mounts. That doesn't make the crafting bad. It's probably one of the better crafting systems in MMORPGs out there, but I just don't really live to craft in these games. That's just me, though. I'm more of a questing and dungeons kind of guy. So, how are the dungeons? They're alright. Listen, if you've played any other MMO, you know what a dungeon is. New World has those. The only difference is that the combat isn't fun, so the dungeons suffer as a result. Bosses are dreadfully easy, and the trash mobs are even easier. There's not much of a challenge posed here, and the rewards are not all that special either. Dungeons are pretty short, visually uninspired, and after you've done a dungeon once, you really won't feel like doing it again. New World has a faction system. It has potential, but there are some glaring issues here as well. These factions are not really explained to the player at all. If there are any story implications regarding these factions, the game does nothing to engage the player with them. I joined the Marauder Faction because I like pirates and I guess they're pirates. I don't really know much more about them or why they fight the other factions. It all just feels a bit tacked on and artificial to me. It is cool that the factions fight for territories on the map and the people in the winning factions can reap the rewards of that territory war. Even so, it still feels pretty inconsequential. This issue isn't specific to New World, though. The only game that got it right was World of Warcraft pre-Cataclysm. Elder Scrolls Online and Albion Online have the same exact problem regarding factions. New World doesn't reinvent the wheel, and frankly, it doesn't have to. But if your game isn't going to be innovative, then it better at least execute what it does better than the other games that are out there for it to be worth spending my time in. No matter what I'm doing in New World, I always find myself wanting to play another game that does that particular activity better. Compound that sentiment with the incredibly repetitive questing and the lackluster combat, and you have a recipe for boredom and fast burnout. New MMOs are so hard to judge because these games generally improve greatly over time. A great example would be Elder Scrolls Online. After years of new content, ESO is a much better game than it was at launch. New World will be a completely different game in 2 to 5 years. Hopefully it'll be more engaging and fun. But for the time being, I think you'd be better off spending your time in Elder Scrolls Online, Final Fantasy, Albion, Guild Wars 2, and RuneScape. If you're just looking for something new to play, and you've already had your fair share of old MMOs, and you're willing to look past all the issues I just stated, well then go ahead. At least there isn't a subscription fee. Well guys, that's all I got to say about New World for now. I genuinely hope it improves over time, and I do think it has potential. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know where you agreed, where you disagreed. Leave a like and a dislike if you feel like it. And please subscribe to the channel because that helps a lot. I'll see you guys next time.